we would like to have this interaction to discuss one of the most important subjects today, of course, which is the AI. The future of many industries will depend on that subject. And that's why, as always, STC would like to share with Bahrain community a great insights that would be useful, grateful for Bahrain. So without any further delay, I would leave this subject between the great hands here to be discussed, and definitely we would be so keen to hear from you, your comments, your questions, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazar. Thank you, Nazar. Is this on? Yep. Yeah, thank you, Nazar and STC for putting on such a great event here. The conversation at hand, I think, warrants the representation that we have in the room, both in terms of all of the different sectors that are represented, as well as the level of seniority here today. My name is Rich Minford. I work for Palantir Technologies. I lead our energy sector business in EMEA. And I've spent the last decade with Palantir figuring out how to take our cutting edge software and put it in the hands of operational users. This is frontlines employees that need to make decisions every single day across industries, including telecoms, healthcare, energy, defense, and more. And that's a core belief for Palantir. If you haven't worked with us before, we are myopically focused on how do you bring data and great technology and put it in the hands of end users, because we know that you can't sit back and create software which works for the world from Silicon Valley. You need to be where decisions are actually made on the front lines. And so I'm very excited to be here in Bahrain. I've had a chance to spend some time out here through our work with Babco Energies, and see immense opportunity for artificial intelligence in the country. Palantir is a leader on AI because of this belief, and we see this moment around artificial intelligence as being quite immense from the perspective of creating as much competitive advantage as possible. And I think there are three really core takeaways that are top of mind for me today. The first is pace and ambition are paramount. The second is the technology in play here around generative AI specifically is fundamentally new and different, and developing your own intuition around why that's true is important. And then third, AI introduces novel risk profiles and paradigms, and with that, you need to really be thoughtful about how you're engineering these systems. So to start us off, ambition and pace, these are, again, they're paramount. I hear a lot of people talking about the potential that AI has the potential to transform industries and governments alike. I disagree with this. I think potential is the wrong word and the wrong framing. This is technology that's available today, that's in play today. And so the focus for businesses, I think, should really be about how do you adopt it. It should be less about strategy white papers and PowerPoints, and a lot more about how do you deliver real value, real competitive advantage for your business. Because we're all hearing about how AI can enable you to do things faster and to do more and to really have an impact across your organization. And so with that, your mindset really needs to flip from, instead of thinking about 2025 and 2030 around artificial intelligence, what can you start doing today? At Palantir, we've been able to deploy production AI workflows with about 100 customers already in 2023, and have a lot of proof points across sectors. And this isn't just the basics around GPT and a chatbot for your business. This is around optimizing your value chains and actually generating real business value in the energy sector, looking at optimizing wells and other complex hydrocarbon processing equipment. In healthcare, it's looking at hospital operations and the myriad of unstructured data that you can use to make better decisions about running your hospitals and supply chains, especially in a world with increased volatility and disruption. This is giving you better reactive capability and eventually more proactivity in terms of how do you manage that volatility as productively as possible. So ambition and pace are paramount. Second piece is the technology itself. Generative AI it's novel. This is a brand new compute and technological paradigm that excels in working in the frame of human language. And this is pretty exciting because it means it lowers the barrier of entry. Instead of needing hyper-technical resources that can write code, you've now got systems that can be built that enable you to work in the frame of language that you understand. Historically, analytics has been driven by algorithms, and that's been the foundation of a lot of analytical workflows across the majority of organizations. Generative AI is fundamentally different, and it's in some pretty interesting ways. If an algorithm gets to a condition that it doesn't understand, it's going to spit out an error message. Generative AI, and if any of you have had a chance to use ChatGPT, for example, if it gets to something it doesn't know or understand, it will often make up a response, and this is quite interesting behavior that needs to be considered and needs to be designed around. It's incredibly powerful, but it also has weaknesses. At Palantir, we think of generative AI as kind of like a mad scientist. It's exceptional in certain areas in its field of expertise. It's truly exceptional, but it's not particularly well-rounded, and so you need to design with that in mind. Which leads me to the last piece around the novel risk and enterprise considerations on deploying generative AI. If you want to use a chatbot to help you book a reservation at a restaurant, that's great. It'll make your life a little bit easier, but there's no downside risk if it goes wrong. On the other hand, if you think about the businesses that all of y'all are responsible for running, complex telecommunications networks or energy systems, or the finance sector, if things don't go right, there can be really bad impacts on human safety, on environmental considerations, on regulatory compliance regimes, on morality, on ethics. And so the tech has to work to enable these. The downside risk is immense. And so, when you're thinking about adopting this novel, this novel technology, you really need to give a lot of consideration and thought to how do you manage these risks, what are the right guardrails to put in place, and it can't be an afterthought. You need to use technology that builds in the most productive way possible all of these considerations, and it's very possible, and we're seeing that across our business, that you can put AI into production in a way that is safe and secure and ethical and compliant, but that needs to be a focus. So in closing, to finish kind of kicking things off here, I hold that strong organizations who execute around the AI opportunity will have the ability to really deliver competitive advantage in their fields because the opportunity warrants it. And it's important to note this isn't about science projects or innovation in labs. This isn't about PowerPoints. It's not about strategy white papers. This is about competitive advantage for your business, full value chain optimization, such that you can actually get the real ROI and you can do it quickly, because this shouldn't be about something that's going to happen in 6 months or 6 weeks. It's about acting today and seeing value from artificial intelligence today. So excited to expand on a number of topics here with our panelists, who I'll quickly introduce. So please give a warm welcome to Sheikh Ali bin Khalifa Al Khalifa, chairman of BNet, Abdul Wahed Al-Janahi, CEO of the Benefit Company, and Christelle Salame, partner at Artifact Mina. Please give them a warm round of applause. To start it off, I think we'll talk a little bit about fitting artificial intelligence into your company's vision. So, Sheikh Ali, I'd like to hand it to you to put you on the hot seat first to talk about the telecom space. This is, of course, an industry rich with opportunity, from reliability of critical infrastructure all the way to the consumer impact. And I'm curious what opportunities you've seen in this space so far.
Very good morning to you, sir, and to the esteemed attendants, panelists. It gives me a pleasure to be here, and thank you, STC, for attending this Tech Talk. I think AI today is the subject that we all hear, whether it's in press releases, in media, and everybody needs to know what AI is. So I think I'll start off very briefly on the understanding the right definition. If we are in the telecom sector specifically, it's important to understand that AI has been here for a while. It's not just the past 10 years. AI started off back in the 1950s. Alan Turing was the father of AI. He was the first use case that we've seen in recent history to prove how AI can be utilized to use the machine to do human, let's say, mimic the human problem-solving, decision-making process. So today for us in the telecom sector, I think it's detrimental and it's mandatory for any organization to implement AI. Now, the dilemma is always, where do we start in AI? And it's very important to include it in all levels of decision-making, starting from the board down to management and down to lower management, and defining it in your strategy and implementing it step by step. So in our example today in BNet has been now 3 years in the run. We've implemented multiple projects in AI specifically. I think we see today with the technology of fiber connectivity for the Kingdom of Bahrain, it's important to have a clear policy, and we endorse and include that in our strategy, which is endorsed by all the stakeholders. And that is very important because the inclusiveness of the decision-making and where you're heading and how you're going and how you're defining what you're implementing is important. And all that falls under the governance of what you're trying to implement. Now, automation and AI today is a key enabler in all telecom sectors. And I do know that if you don't talk AI today, you're always in the back seat. You're always late. So you need to have part of your policies and your organizations and implement strategies to use AI in the right way, in a right governed way, in a right, let's say, policy-driven way. So in our case, let's say, BNet is mainly connecting the fiber to most houses in Bahrain and most fiber connectivity in Bahrain. Therefore, it is totally dependent on data. And I think AI today, if you do not have the right data, you will not have the right usage of the AI, let's say, processes and policies. So it's detrimental for you to have accurate data and organized data for you to really utilize AI the correct way, in the correct way, to reach the service or the delivery you need to deliver. So what we've seen today in AI, specifically in network automation, network optimization, the way you use it to improve the service, the connectivity, and not only that, but also the service for it, how to react when you have a disruption. Fiber today, as a service, is useless if you don't have that, let's say, connectivity live and running. And for us as customers, I think that factor is the most important factor, is to have the readiness and the time to make it work and get it back working in a very quick time so that, the service you're providing is there and available for whoever is using that. So we have implemented a few AI adaptations in the network optimization, and we've seen that turnaround, given we're a new company, as you know, within the 2 years, and we've noticed from day one, let's say, since we started and today, 3 years down the road, how AI changed the service delivery in most of these, let's say, responses to disruptions, responses to service. And by the implementation of AI, it allowed us to reach to this service delivery in a better way and provide to the customers a better, let's say, service delivery. And I do know that you're always late, but you have to always monitor how you implement AI. As long as you have a step-by-step approach where you know where you're heading with AI, you do a certain initiative and then you move on and go to the next. Now, the dilemma is always how big do you start and how small do you start? And I think for us, we've noticed multiple projects in different segments that we have implemented AI. I would give examples. One was the network and the optimization of the network. Two, we have also approached talent management also as a certain segment of using AI in certain areas. And three, I would say audit was also a new area that we have adapted the use of AI, and it has actually shown how you can really fine-tune how you work as an organization from a governance approach. Not only that, but also putting certain KPIs on your segments, knowing how you data drive your organizations. Because today, any delivery, you would ask your subordinates. I mean, we need to always have some sort of metric to gauge our performances, whether you're on the board level or down to your management level. So we have adopted a few, let's say, processes that we have noticed improvements in work, improvements in deliveries, and it's an ongoing process. And as long as you have transparency and the right governance in place, that will always allow you to sort of, reflect at the end of the year and, reapproach what you've been doing in the past year and then do it back again and being transparent, you're always on the spot. You have to be always ready. You have to be always open on whether you deliver or not. And that is, I think, whether you're on a senior level or middle level, it's important to be as much transparent as you can and showing the data to allow you to also improve and excel in these areas that you're trying to do. So we've had multiple implementations in BNet, and I would like to shed the light finally, sir, on just one last note, is knowing where to start is important, but implementing it clearly in a defined way with the right policies and procedure is even more important. So I would close my note on that, sir.
Yeah, very good. I think a lot of great thoughts there on a range from network optimization through to better connectivity with your customers. And I really like the point around, rate of learning, because I think that's a key piece here. You will fail in certain aspects of this, and having a culture where you can learn quickly from those failures and iterate and get better with the technology over time is going to be critical. Abdul Wahed, over to you. I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on a similar question, just understanding, at a high level, what are the opportunities that you see in finance from your work?
Thank you very much, Rich. Good morning again. Thank you for STC for inviting us, and it's good to see all familiar faces. So inshallah we going to benefit, like it's reciprocal. Coming back to AI, I think AI has impacted all the industries, medical, pharmaceuticals, logistics, tourism. It is already there, as Sheikh Ali mentioned. Now, but when it comes to finance, the finance industry, the impact is much quicker and faster. It is related to the financial technology. So why it is faster? It is already reshaping the financial services by automating the task and to enhancing the decision-making process. When I say fast, for example, I'll just give you an example. I just was in Singapore just last week. They were comparing Twitter, which is X now, Facebook, and the chat GPT in terms of the customer or in terms of the number of people which acquired to those applications. It took 50 to 60 months in order to reach 100 million users for the Twitter or X, along with the Facebook, and it took only 2 months to acquire 100 million customers. So you can see now the change, it's happening so fast. But coming back to the finance, or the way that we see it, I can summarize them, in my opinion, in 3 categories. First one is the customer experience, which we feel that even with our, at Benefit, we saw this, there was a very positive impact. The second one is the advanced fraud detection. Now I think it's becoming a concern to everybody, or to the customers, to the organization, to the regulator. And the third one, which is risk assessment and management. So when we talk about the customer experience, we all know there's a chatbot, and there's a virtual assistant, which powered by the AI, provide 24/7, assisting the customers, answering their queries, assisting them with the transactions. In fact, it goes beyond that. I'm sure some of us know that. It's analyze the data to offer future, or to offer the personalized or customized product and services and financial advice to the to the customer. As for the advanced detection, advanced fraud detection, I think this is AI play a major, in fact, a critical role in detecting the pattern and the anomalies of the customer data, and to identify the potential fraudulent activities. And this happens all in real time. So in a way, this will enhance the security measures. And for the third one, which I refer to the risk assessment and management, again, it's the AI analyze vast data, like the credit history, financial statement, the market trends, macroeconomic activities. So all this help to make a better risk assessment or risk evaluation. Having said that, so nowadays, all the banks and fintech firms and all the players, which is getting into the financial technology, they are competing for the new customer and the new joiners by offering digital services, for example, digital onboarding. So the whole idea here is to have a fast and a quick decision-making process. But one thing also I need to add now, in terms of the way what will happen next, I believe the trend, it will be more of a comprehensive digital banking platforms where it require minimal human resources. And I believe AI already is started, but eventually it will fully run the, from a customer acquisition, AKYC, and other offer services, and so on. But one thing here, which is important always when we talk about the technology, we should not neglect the security. In fact, His Excellency, the government, always remind me, from a regulator point of view, that you Benefit, you should be 3 times more secure than the others. Because if you lose that kind of trust, then you will lose the customer. So we are always in our toes, and we are working with our partners and solution providers to make sure that we are to that level. It's not easy. It is always we noticed that the last few days there are some kind of DDoS attacks, but this is normal. It's happening. But the idea is that you have to prepare. You have to have these sort of applications ready in order to face this kind of sort of attack.
Yep, some great thoughts there. Thank you. I think the 3 categories make sense on customer experience, fraud, and risk. And I also like the point on the vast amounts of data, which I think is a good segue to Christelle. Christelle, how do you think about the relationship between data and AI?
Yeah. So thank you, Rich, and thank you, STC, for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure to be on this panel. So yeah, I think when we think about data and AI, really, I think AI, specifically also generative AI, is a very promising technology and a very fast evolving technology. But at the core of it, we need to start by addressing the foundations and addressing the data transformation to start with. So here what we need to think about is making sure that you have the right data in place, that you have the right data governance, the right data controls, privacy, security, as my fellow panelists also mentioned. These are key aspects to be thinking about. Data quality is also, I think, one of the very important topics that we see today. At the end, the output of anything that, whether it's a basic data model, data analysis, or a more advanced AI model, the output and the quality of the output is going to be as good as the quality of the data that goes in. So really, we think about data as the foundation for AI, and that would cut across platform, having the right tools and systems in place, having the right data governance controls, data quality controls, as well as having the right data capabilities to be able to work on all of the AI transformation. And I think even before we even start, so depending on the data maturity of many of the existing organizations, there's a lot of value that can be generated from the data even before getting into the more advanced AI technologies. So at any stage within the data maturity of the company, working on the data and addressing some of the data challenges would allow organizations to generate value. So whether it's from descriptive kind of use cases, more diagnostic, being able to have improved efficiency within the organization, having better decision making, that would be powered by initially some of the data analysis, but also later on with AI.
Great. And I think there's also an opportunity there around, what's the role in AI to actually help get your data estate in order as well, as there are some, I think, significant accelerants to consider there. So we do want to keep this interactive, and so after each round of questions, we're going to open it up for the audience to ask anything that's top of mind. So wanted to open things up here and see if there are initial questions for the panelists so far.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity. Thanks to CC as well. So, I just want to know more about what we can do from a real experience with AI. Have you faced any experience, any banks, company that uses the AI as a success story?
If I may just shed 2 minutes of this thought. I think today, this session, what we're having today is very important. I mean, sharing experiences is, I think, for Bahrain specifically, is important to know where you succeed and where you identify some new areas that you venture in. I mean, our sectors are quite close and tied up, and we know that any sector that does something good in this subject matter. So specifically in AI, I think it's about time to start to put it under an umbrella and see certain implications or implementations that we've done, a case study that we've done in entity A or entity B, to share it with other sectors. And I think this with other segments, because we've seen it, we see it evolve in specifically cybersecurity. Sharing experiences, sharing threat information, knowing how things are implemented have really allowed the segment to move faster. So I think for AI specifically, I think it's about time to create some sort of I wouldn't say a club, but some sort of a gathering, regular discussions and sharing some experiences for AI. And then everybody shares whatever implementation he's done. And I think His Highness Sheikh Nasser has started an implementation. And I think it's about time to govern that correctly and start sharing it and having the right hub to discuss and bring these ideas and have these discussions on people that are actually on the ground doing these initiatives, and on a strategic level, whether it's boards, leadership, etc., to know what's happening exactly on the segments that we have.
Thank you, Dr. Adel. It's just I want to share with you, it's not really, I mean, the AI is, as here, I think everybody's trying to implement. We are already working on it for the customer service and for our credit bureau. But if I go a little bit back when you're talking about the automation, for example, if I can use the credit reference bureau, it's mainly based on data and correct data, a clean data. When we started it in collaboration with the central bank, Mr. Khalid Hamid, he was very much involved here, and he was a great support along with the banks. Just to give you an idea how this started, when we collected or collated all the data at the beginning, there was like 40 or 50% data errors. And Mr. Mohammed, he remember that. And just imagine, so you cannot make a decision based on incorrect data. So the whole idea was to help the banks to make better decision, a quicker decision. So again, in collaboration with the central bank and the banks, as well as benefit, we managed to clean the data. It took us 3 years, I remember. But today, we're talking about less than 1% threshold in terms of the errors or the incorrect data. So that helped a lot of the financial institutions in making a better decision on correct numbers and facts. So this is just one of the successes that I see it in Bahrain. But again, it's not really an AI, but it's an automation. And we are working to improve that as we move on.
I think from my perspective, I'll give you maybe an example. So I work with a lot of real estate companies. And one of the main aspects that we work on, let's say, is related to lead management, which could apply for real estate or even other sectors. And it's not only about having like a specific application of data and AI, but for example, in lead management, you would have a suite of different use cases. So it would start by using, let's say, the data that you would have, internal data that you would have for you to be able to understand who are the good quality leads, who are the lower quality leads. You would start using AI to predict who are the more likely to convert. You start using more data tools to be able to target them better. So it's really putting all of these different elements together, and that would be starting, for example, with your internal data, which we call first-party data. Then you start ingesting or looking at more second and third-party data. So what's happening in the market? So you would improve the models. So it's each of these different pieces that come together eventually that would allow you in an incremental way to generate value for the business.
Thank you for the question.
One more here.
Thank you. Hello. Hi, thank you for the talk. There were two questions I'd like to ask. The first one is in regards to legislation. How have other countries brought in AI or regenerative data into legislation, and how to change the way things are currently being done, like with smart contracts or an ability to change the status quo? That's the first question. The second question is maybe if you can, with your experience, give us more information of resources or how in different sectors to access what's happening in the world. I just wanted to, I mean, I can ask ChatGPT, but I just want your experience. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take the first one. I think the legislation question is a really good one, and it's very rapidly changing. We're seeing a lot of evolution on this. I'm from the U.S. but based in London, so paying very close attention in those geographies in particular. And I think there's a significant debate right now on AI safety and what needs to be in place to give yourself confidence that you can get the most out of it without putting civilians at risk. And I think there's what I've appreciated so far from the government side of things is a real interest in getting this right and bringing the right people together to have those conversations. So the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak brought together a pretty significant corpus of tech leaders about a month ago, and in the UK to talk about AI safety, and that included leaders from Palantir, OpenAI, Microsoft, and more to kind of have the conversation on how do we shape this with a safety first mindset that doesn't kill or stifle innovation. So I think it's, expecting this to be a rapidly evolving space, but I've seen, I think, positive trajectory around early forms from that. Anyone want to jump in on the legislation or the resources side of things?
I think legislation is one of the main pillars of the artificial intelligence. And like you rightly said, it's the current hot topic today on a global scale about AI specifically. And countries today are talking how to govern artificial intelligence. And as you know, it's a very sensitive area. And governments in countries, whether they're global powers or other countries, are in discussions today on how to create some sort of a regulation, create an international body, some sort of governance. I do know it would take time, but specifically on domestic affairs and what we've seen in governments, let's say Bahrain and others, data privacy laws, how do we use the data in the right way to manage the use of this, let's say, information or sensitive information is also a must, and it has to be also introduced as you venture into these areas and introduce these digital transformations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So since they covered legislation, so let me talk about the resources. I think I understand that you think what will happen to the resources, right?
Like how does legislation come in part of the AI to cover out what we're doing in the private sector versus the public sector?
Okay, then I thought this is one.
No,
Okay,
no, it doesn't have to do with the resources. I'm just talking about legislation, how they're
Sorry,
going to be
I
adaptive to the technology, and how will legislation put in place the correct tools for the private sector to enable their businesses and not have it as a burden instead of an enabler.
I think maybe one point that I would like to add, I think I agree with Rich that this is an area that is evolving and hopefully it's going in the right direction. But I think with the new technology, the areas of legislation are also becoming a bit different from the more traditional way of doing data and AI. So for example, when we talk about generative AI, one of the main questions is about IP rights, for example, and how do you actually, like once you share your data to be able to create new content, this data potentially could be used in future models. So then who owns the right for every content that is being generated? And then if you're using a model that you fine-tuned, for example, for your own company, do you actually own the rights? So these are areas that maybe are not directly related to data and AI, but as the technology is evolving and as there are new domains that are coming and data and AI is addressing, then I think there are new fields that we also need to be looking at. There's no answer, or at least I don't have an answer for now, and I think this is an evolving topic. But there are a lot of different areas that we need to be considering as part of legislation.
Well, first, special thanks and greetings to STC for hosting such an important seminar or talk. It is definitely the future, and that we are all building to basically reach a stage where more developed services across the whole economy. But in every change that we have seen in the past, right, we focus on the technical aspects and we forget one important aspect, which is the psychological aspect. There has been a lot of talk on people are scared that they might lose their job, junior people. Others, they say highly paid people might lose their job, and so on and so forth. And there's also a lot of talk about the business people who are doing traditional services. They're also scared that if they don't invest more, which they cannot, they might lose their job. They might lose their businesses. So maybe if you can shed some light from your experience, Annie, on this aspect as to what needs to be done to prepare whether governments or people at large on this area. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a great question and one that needs to have a lot of consideration applied, given people care a lot about this because it's really important. I think my perspective and our company's belief is that even with all the talk about the automation that AI can bring, at the end of the day, the most powerful solutions are going to be solutions that integrate artificial intelligence, traditional analytical modeling and algorithms, and human beings, because all three of those things are distinct and very necessary when it comes to designing systems to optimize value chains. And I think it's important to not lose sight of this. I think, I think your point on looking at change over time that brings sort of a natural fear, but I think we've also tackled versions of this before where there has been heavy automation in various industries, and we can process and automate some busy work out of the equation. But the way that I think works the best is when you're freeing up human ingenuity and intellect to be able to focus on higher order and more exciting challenges. Because I think in talking with a lot of people, you don't necessarily want to be doing busy work. You want to be doing something that kind of requires some generativeness and creativity, and if you can marry those things up well, I think there's an opportunity that this can improve jobs and improve human lives, and I think there would definitely be specific functions that would get replaced by automation and AI, but I think it depends on the design intent of the organizations that are wielding this capability. But there's a version of it that's very productive where you're still at the core talking about humans and machines working together as they have been for a long time, and this is just a new enhancement along those veins.
Thank you, sir, for the question. I would share my experiences in BNet and the boards that we represent. I'll just give you a live example of me personally. When we first came into the companies we were in, or establishing them, there were certain org structures that we were thinking of that we had inherited. And as we came on, we had, real cases, consultants coming in, showing us what's the best practice today, where the world is heading today, and what we've identified specifically within our functions of our organization structures, is that data analysts and data science today is a must, not only for companies, but also for governments going for the future. Because the uses of AI today is totally dependent on data. And for you to understand and apprehend that segment or sector, you need to base it on data. So for me to say, I have people that are, whether they're happy or they are performing or underperforming, you need to use data. So by having experts that know how to translate this data into information and then information to decisions, you need to establish the right, let's say, constructs within your organization to give you that, let's say, overall loop that you need to function as a AI function, I would say. So we've noticed that today, in the past 3 years, we've had a huge influx of talent that we hired and specifically trained in these new areas for us to get better results. And we've noticed huge performance enhances in many areas, not only in, let's say, network and technical areas, but also in talent and audit, which is important, and finally cybersecurity also. So we've noticed that the area of data scientists and data analysts today / machine learning are also offered internally in Bahrain, and that's also good, the education systems that we have. And I think going forward, it's a necessity for every segment and every sector that has to adopt these structural changes within their organization.
Allow me, yes, just to complement what Sheikh Ali mentioned, I believe the old job eventually it will phase out, and whether we like it or not, I think things will change. The AI and the information will dominate, but this will not happen immediately or all of a sudden. It will take time. So as Sheikh Ali mentioned now, jobs like data scientist, prompt engineer, AI development coders are those jobs that have a lot of demands, and I think it will be more demandable in the future. So the organization, from now on, they should look at this. They should reshape, their direction in terms of the task and function in order to meet the future demands. For example, when we talk about AI, we're talking about data. So, and the panel mentioned about the data should be correct and it should be transparent. So this is where you need the prompt engineer to make sure that whoever will input or feed in the application, they should put it in the right context. So it is in phases, but it's coming. I think it's. But I agree. The human being should be considered, and this is the role of the organizations to make sure that they move toward that direction.
Thank you for the question. Okay, we'll move on to our second topic, which is all about how do you formulate an effective AI strategy. I think striking the right balance between getting started quickly and as well as managing the risk, managing the compliance, managing the regulation is very, very important. So, but the hardest thing is often what's the right step one. So let's turn it over to you, Sheikh Ali, to start things off with the telecom perspective, and let's try to keep our responses a little briefer.
Sure.
Get through the questions.
I would summarize it and start small, but spend time in identifying the right areas you want to venture in first. So have a list of options, but start small, succeed in the small area, and then expand it gradually within your organization. Just one last point on digital transformation. Today, we all talk about digital transformation in our organizations. We implement new technologies in IT, in communication, et cetera, therefore, we need to include the strategy of AI within these digital transformations to allow it to grow properly within our organization.
Abdul Wahid from Finance.
Okay. I mean, if talking from our experience, as a benefit company, we sort of like, probably if I can summarize them in 3 success stories. I mentioned the first one, which is to do with the customer experience and customer service. We, as a management, working to implement the AI for our customer service in order to have an immediate response of looking at the customer queries, helping them with their issues and problems. The other one is which is the process automation. This is something that we manage it very well, especially the routine and the repetitive tasks already done by some sort of an AI, and freeing up the human resources to focus on more complex and added value activities. And the third one is the data analysis and productive analytics. Again, this is something that it's related to our division when we talk about the Credit Bureau and AKYC, and of course we are working on a new project which is SME 360s, where the data or the huge data or the history and the behavior and the patterns and the trends are manipulated and analyzed in order to offer future outcomes, for the clients. So if we are referring this to by embracing the AI technology, I think it's important in order for any organizations, to survive, because the other players already there, the telcos, the fintech firms, the big techs, the e-wallets, even the social services like WhatsApp and whatever, they are already relying heavily on this AI, and I think it's becoming very, very important, and this shouldn't be neglected.
Yeah, I think survive is a great word there, and that's part of what makes this so exciting is there's, it does feel like an existential opportunity for businesses to wield something new, to survive and grow. And Christelle, kind of building off of your last area around kind of data and AI and the relationship, in terms of getting started with AI, how does the richness of the data estate map to how bold or ambitious you can be or where to start?
Yeah. I think first when we look at data and AI, it's important that we do it with a purpose. So it's not just about having the data and AI technology, but really thinking of what we want to achieve. And especially when you have a lot of data, you might actually get lost into what you can do with it. So having a clear vision and a clear objective is very important to start with. I think this is the initial step of really understanding where we're heading and what we want to achieve, and then having the required enablers in place that would actually evolve with this vision that is evolving. So having, for example, a data platform and data tools that would allow you to build data models and AI models. And as we mentioned, start small, but also scale fast. So we need to actually have both the vision of being able to scale and have the flexibility to increase in terms of maturity on all different fronts related to data. But at the same time, you don't need to have the fastest car if you don't have the right road to drive on it, right? So start with what is required, know where you're heading, and then based on this, you would scale fast and you would have the right flexibility to be able to evolve.
Building with scaling in mind, absolutely critical, and that's where the value realization is really going to be amplified exponentially. Great. Final topic is we've hit on some points here, but risk around use of AI, especially in critical environments. So, what are some risks that you see in the telecom space, and that can be from an asset perspective in terms of reliability, or all the way through to AI getting a hold of data and that having a negative impact on civilian surveillance?
Well, I think an ultimate risk would be probably the potential of an overpowered AI system that is utilizing, let's say, networks or any kind of sensitive data. That can be probably a risk factor on your organization or on wherever you're working on. So I think overpowering a system sometimes also creates some sort of a high risk. Now, the question is, how do I prevent that? You prevent it by putting the boundaries, the policies, the procedures, the regulations, the legislations that we need to adopt. And the only problem that we face today, to be honest, is that when we implement anything new, we find sometimes that the regulation is quite late, and the new technology or the thing that we're developing is quite ahead, and then we're late, and then we're doing cybersecurity before doing the AI, and so this is the dilemma we're in today, and this is the reality. But as long as you adopt it, try to define it correctly, try to document the policy first to protect you from any major, let's say, incident or major problem that you might fall in. And problems are there, whether we like it or not, and we will eventually fall into a problem. We've seen it. I've seen it personally, major and minor. So as long as you have that sort of a policy to cover you, and then you fix it quickly and stand up back again, that will help you how to move in and adopt new technologies in AI, et cetera, and move on to the initiatives and projects you're trying to do within your organization.
Very good. And Abdul Wahed, same sort of topic around risk and maturity requirements, but specifically interested in some of the questions that have been asked around human-computer relationship in the context of AI with regard to risk.
Yeah, there's always a concern. There's an ethical concern, when you use AI, and there are many stories where there is lack of transparency. Biases, discriminations to do with the gender, with ethnic groups. So again, it depends what sort of data you input, what sort of data you feed in the AI. So it's important for the human interaction and a human intervention in order to make, at least to put the appropriate data. I wouldn't say that he will do it completely or 100%, but at least to minimize those biases and those discriminations. But there are stories that already, when you go and search for certain things, it gives you something that is not right. Again, coming back to the right context of the of the information, it is very critical. But I believe that when it comes to the regulations and legislations and rules and laws, from the experience, okay, it's not easy, but it's not difficult. Okay, in Bahrain, we went through so many experiences. The central bank, they're always proactive. Like if you look at for the electronic payments, for example, there are laws. For the open banking, there is a framework. For the crowdfunding, whatever business related to the or needs regulations, I think there are a group of regulators that they work on this. So it is a concern, but it's not a worry. And I think I'm sure as we speak, other people also from the other side they're working on this, and they're very much aware. So it's not only us; it is it is a collective effort. And hopefully, when it comes to the AI, I'm sure the government and the regulators, they are looking at it, from the rules and regulations.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. And I think the biases point is a really important one to consider and be mindful of when we're all developing this intuition. It's, what corpus of data has your generative AI model been trained on? And we're seeing, a lot of people in the industry are, speculate that there's going to be a lot of convergence around and commoditization of these large language models themselves. But what really matters is what have they been trained on? Llama, that was released by Meta, obviously very close to the corpus of data from Facebook. Twitter's got their own large language model that's trained on their data. GPT's got a different training set, and it's a lot more about the models aren't too different, but the data they're trained on is incorporating those biases in interesting ways and starting to, again, develop the intuition for what that looks like and why I think it's going to be critical for productionizing these systems. And finally, to you, Christelle, I think, finishing up on, something that I hear from a lot of different customers is there's some apprehension around getting started with this. And how do you typically approach that, overcoming any apprehension around AI to get started?
I think we're seeing more of this apprehension, specifically when it also comes to generative AI, because we don't understand if the security is in place, what is the outcome going to be, the quality of the outcome, etc. I think it also depends here on the data maturity of the organization. So typically organizations who have already been in this data and AI journey for quite some time, they're more curious about understanding what is the potential of these technologies and how we can use them. I think when it comes to, for example, generative AI, yes, the models are evolving. They're becoming better performing. They're becoming also easier to implement, more secure, etc. One way to do that is, as we said before, to start small and then scale up. Start using generative AI potentially for applications that would have high value, where you can start having some of the adoption to test these outcomes, but at the same time have them in areas where you wouldn't compromise on the business. So for example, not starting maybe initially with applications that would be customer facing, where you don't have control then after that over the output that would come from generative AI. So some of the applications can really have a lot of impact on the productivity of the organizations. For example, using generative AI for internal purposes on summarizing a lot of the policies, being able specifically for organizations who have a long list of policies, procedures, etc., that would take them a lot of time to understand and to communicate and share these policies within the organization. That could potentially be an application where it is still within an internal environment. You can start generating some of the impact. It has high adoption, so you see the output and you can actually test it very fast. And at the same time, you can have some controls internally to make sure that how the output is being used before you actually roll it out as an industrialized kind of use case for the organization.
Sincere thank you for all the responses here. I really enjoyed the panel. I think the homework assignment for everyone here is to contemplate generative AI, but do it in a way that is ambitious with pace, manages the risks, and develops intuition around the technology itself. Very simple. So looking forward to getting started. Thank you all.
Thank you.